A member from St. Ann Southeastern, you now have the floor. Member from Southeast St. Ann, you now have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we are indeed discussing and debating a legislation that has far-reaching implications. We are doing this, and we are here having this conversation because of what Hurricane Melissa revealed. It revealed the fragility of our housing, the weakness of our infrastructure, and the reality that too many Jamaicans are living one shock away from losing everything. Homes destroyed, businesses devastated, roads washed out, families forced to split up because basic systems failed. Mr. Speaker, the hurricane didn't create these conditions. It revealed them. And like the hurricane, this bill forces us to answer a critical question about our country. The question was asked in Steerfield, St. Ann, last week, after the killing of 2 young men by the police. It is being asked by families still waiting to rebuild. It is being asked by young people trying to find work and trying to figure out their futures. The question, Mr. Speaker, what kind of country are we living in? Mr. Speaker, this is not a question to express frustration. It's a question about how power is exercised in this country. Are systems working or are systems being bypassed? Are citizens participants or bystanders waiting, sitting in limbo? We cannot examine this bill, Mr. Speaker, without answering this question. The issue is not whether we should rebuild quickly. Actually, we must, at a pace and at a scale like we've never seen before. The issue is, how do we rebuild? Do we rebuild through the systems or around the system? Because Jamaica does not need only one part of Jamaica working. Jamaica needs the entire system functioning. Not one authority delivering, but ministries, agencies, and communities working together. This bill does none of that. This bill is focused on building concentration of power, and concentration of power in a way that does not have any accountability attached to it. What Jamaica needs, Mr. Speaker, it needs embedding, engagement, and empowerment. Embedding the strengthening of what allows for the strengthening of what exists. Engagement allows for the involvement of people, and empowerment allows us to enable action where people live. If the system is broken, Mr. Speaker, creating one powerful authority does not fix it. It works around it. It undermines it. It makes matters worse. And I'm not talking here theoretical. I'm speaking based on the evidence. You look at the writings from the UN and it says true resilience depends on strengthening institutions, local governance, and participation. The World Bank goes further. It says where recovery is embedded, systems improve, capacities grow, and countries get stronger. However, where recovery efforts bypass national systems, projects are delivered, but systems remain weak and failure returns. Mr. Speaker, let us look at two examples. Indonesia. After the tsunami, Indonesia created a powerful reconstruction authority in Aceh. It had control, it had funding, it had speed. And yes, they built some houses, some roads, some infrastructure at scale. But Mr. Speaker, it operated outside the normal system. Ministries were bypassed, local capacity was not built, and when the authority ended, guess what? The system was left behind. Everything collapsed. The system was still weak. Projects slowed down, coordination weakened, and the country had to rebuild its systems after rebuilding its infrastructure. The second example comes from New Zealand. After the earthquake in Christchurch, similarly, it created a central authority with sweeping powers. It could override local government, it could fast-track decisions, and yes, it moved quickly. But communities were sidelined, local voices were weakened. People began to realize that decisions were being made about them without them. Trust declined. Plans had to be revised, and participation had to be reintroduced. So, Mr. Speaker, in Indonesia, they built fast, but did not build the system. In Christchurch, they moved fast, but they left people out. And in both cases, something essential was lost. The fact that countries that build systems recover. Countries that bypass their systems are doomed to repeat their failure. Mr. Speaker, let's put that another way. Speed without system is deferred collapse, because it's not a matter of if. If the systems are not in place, failure is certain. Speed without systems is deferred collapse. Now, Mr. Speaker, this bill creates an authority that can act, direct, and override. It is a super authority. It is a supernova. Oh, sorry, a super Nara. A super Nara. And yes, as we see elsewhere, it will get things done. It will build, but it will not transform. Because it is designed to do things. It is not designed to change how things are done. But imagine, Mr. Speaker, imagine a NARA embedded in the system, cutting through delays, clearing bottlenecks, forcing coordination, modernizing processes and legislation, not replacing the system, Mr. Speaker, but making the system work. Mr. Speaker, that is transformation in practice. One of the most telling things about this bill, Mr. Speaker, is what is missing. Well, a lot is missing. But let me talk about two things which are missing. One is structured participation by the people, and the other is the implications for rural Jamaica. So while the bill aims to rebuild communities, it excludes the communities from decision making. This is not a policy flaw. This is failure to understand and appreciate this critical tenet of democracy, the people's voice. Mr. Speaker, the bill provides for consultation with relevant persons, but it does not define who who they are, how consultation should occur, or how long it must last. And yet, the authority may even affect zoning, land use. How do you do that without talking to, getting input from the people who are affected? So, Mr. Speaker, imagine a clause with language that speaks to ensuring that all major reconstruction and resilience projects and any material changes to land use or zoning are subject to public consultation prior to approval. Or language that require a notice of proposed projects and programs to be published in the Gazette, or a minimum consultation period which must be observed. I don't think this is asking too much. The people deserve to have a say in this legislation. Now, the other area which is invisible is the treatment of rural Jamaica. When the hurricane passed, it revealed farm roads that were never properly maintained, drainage systems that had long outlived their usefulness, communities served by roads that were always one rainfall away from isolation. Mr. Speaker, this bill does nothing about these things. It does nothing about the roofs that blow off in Coombs and Cowley. It does nothing about the informal settlements across the country in places like Pine Walk and Parrytown, or the embankments that broke away in various parts of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, this is not accidental. It is the result of a development model that centralizes decision-making, prioritizes large, visible investments, and treats rural communities as secondary. And this bill repeats the errors of the past and will condemn rural communities to failure as they've always been. Because, Mr. Speaker, what is invisible in design will not be visible in the outcome. The bill, therefore, should include provisions to address equity and inclusion in development. The authority, for example, could be required to ensure that reconstruction and resilience efforts prioritize vulnerable and underserved communities. The authority could also be required to allocate a defined portion of resources to rural and vulnerable communities, and ensure representation of rural stakeholders in planning and decision-making. Mr. Speaker, if we do, remember what we've always done, we will get the results we've always gotten. This is a chance to do things differently. And if we don't, Mr. Speaker, rural Jamaica will remain underserved, underprioritized, and unseen. And I go further, Mr. Speaker, because when you have the authority that is currently being vested in the NARA, it will also mean that the small projects that benefit rural communities will be sidelined. Mr. Speaker, I turn to the issue of transformation. The bill speaks of transformation in the objects, and we support that. It speaks of it, but it does not show how it will deliver it. Transformation requires stronger institutions. Transformation requires better systems. Transformation requires inclusive governance. What this bill does is that it promises faster execution and centralized control. It accelerates delivery, but leaves the system unchanged. Mr. Speaker, it is not accidental. It's a design flaw. It is a flawed approach. It is an approach which must be revisited. You cannot build resilience by curtailing systems. Even if you build infrastructure and the systems are not in place, as I said earlier, you're doomed to fail. Mr. Speaker, the bill states that the authority shall prepare, implement, and oversee projects, and may do anything necessary. But nowhere does it require the authority to strengthen institutions, reform systems, or leave behind a lasting capacity to carry the work forward. One of the most difficult things with these institutional arrangements, Mr. Speaker, is that you cannot, or it's difficult to transition. When you have all the power and the resources that are now being vested in NARA, it's almost impossible to transition to the ministries and the agencies. And so that is why the bill must make the provisions to embed the authority, not to create a separate entity, but to ensure it works through the existing system. So, in order to move from an execution mandate to a transformation mandate, consideration should be given to language along these lines. That the authority should prioritize the strengthening of existing government institutions, systems, and processes to ensure long-term resilience. And that it should also identify and eliminate inefficiencies in approval and implementation processes. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want the system to get better. We want, after NARA, we function as if NARA was in every agency, in every ministry. Mr. Speaker, I asked the question earlier on. What kind of country are we living in? It's a question from Steerfield. It's a question from our young people. But we must also ask ourselves this evening, what kind of country do we want to live in? A country where power is centralized, a country where citizens are excluded, where accountability is selective, or one where systems are strong, where people are included, where the future is secure. Mr. Speaker, if we rebuild without fixing the system, we are not building resilience. We are rebuilding vulnerability. And so, Mr. Speaker, I have only one request left. Let's send this bill where it belongs. Let's send it where it belongs, to a joint select committee, because we know it can be much better than what is presented here. Yeah. I thank you.
Member from St. James Southern.